Ashcombe was the kind of village that never hurried. The year was 1881, yet it felt like centuries of tradition lay woven into its cobblestones. Children played marbles in the lanes, women hung laundry in the sweet-smelling air, and men smoked pipes outside the alehouse at dusk. The only sound after sundown was the tolling of the church bell or the clip-clop of a lone horse carriage returning home. In this quiet village lived Clara Whitmore, a 15-year-old girl with a pale complexion, thoughtful eyes, and hair the color of autumn chestnuts. Unlike other girls her age who spent hours gossiping about ribbons or future husbands, Clara preferred sitting by the old oak tree with a book, or more often, with her diary. The villagers often said, "That Whitmore girl sees the world differently." Some thought it was a compliment. Others meant it as a warning. Every night, Clara sat by the attic window of her family's cottage. The candlelight flickered as she opened her diary, the worn leather cover creaking like an old friend sighing. Her diary wasn't simply a book of daily events. It was her soul poured onto paper. She wrote about the sound of rain tapping the window, the sadness in the eyes of widowed Mrs. Carter who lived down the lane, the way the stars seemed to pulse as if they carried secrets. "Sometimes," she wrote one evening, "I feel as though the universe whispers things to me before they happen. I see a bird fall before it hits the ground. I hear the sorrow in someone's voice before they even cry." Her words were never read by anyone else until the night something chilling appeared on its pages. It was a raw, windy evening in March when Clara felt an unusual heaviness as she lifted her quill. Her hand moved without much thought, almost as if guided. She wrote slowly, "The flowers will bloom, the bells will toll, and on the 12th day of June I shall take my final breath." Her hand froze. The ink blot spread like a dark omen across the page. Clara's heart pounded as she whispered aloud, "What madness is this?" She tried to convince herself it was a silly, dramatic thought, something she had imagined from reading too many Gothic novels. But something deep inside her told her otherwise. She pressed the diary shut with trembling fingers and hid it beneath her pillow. Sleep did not come easily that night. The next morning, Clara's best friend, Eleanor Hughes, noticed the change. Eleanor was Clara's opposite, bright-eyed, loud, and full of cheer. She pulled Clara aside as they walked home from school. "You've been awfully quiet, Clara. You hardly smiled today. Did something happen?" Clara hesitated. Should she tell her? Finally, she whispered, "I wrote something last night, something strange." Eleanor laughed. "Strange? Your diary is always full of strange things. What is it this time? Another dream about stars talking to you?" Clara looked down at her boots crunching the gravel path. "No, this time it was about me. About June. About my death." Eleanor's laughter stopped. "Clara, don't say such dreadful things. You're healthy. You're young. It's just your imagination running wild." Clara wanted to believe her, but her friend's nervous smile betrayed a shadow of fear. Clara's father, Thomas Whitmore, was a man of dignity, tall, broad-shouldered, with a strict but gentle presence. He adored his daughter, though he rarely showed it with words. One afternoon, while tidying her attic room, Thomas stumbled upon the diary left open on the bed. He meant only to close it, but his eyes caught the inked words of the prophecy. He stood frozen, his breath catching in his throat. "What foolishness is this?" he muttered, though his voice trembled. That night at supper, Thomas studied Clara carefully as she sipped her broth. Every little cough made his heart race. "You mustn't stay out in the damp, Clara," he ordered, "and wear your shawl when you walk." Clara frowned. "Father, I'm fine." But he wasn't convinced. From that day on, he carried a silent fear, watching his daughter as though she were already halfway gone. In Ashcombe, secrets never stayed secrets for long. Clara's cousin accidentally glimpsed the diary and confided in a neighbor. Within a week, the village buzzed with whispers. They say the Whitmore girl wrote the date of her own death. Perhaps she's cursed. No, she's gifted. Mark my words, she's a prophet. Children stared at her with wide eyes. Some villagers crossed themselves when she passed. Even the baker's wife avoided her as though death itself lingered at her side. Clara felt the weight of every stare. She hated the way they looked at her, not as Clara the girl, but Clara the doomed. When Father Henry, the kindly old priest, heard the rumors, he visited the Whitmore home. He found Clara sitting in the garden, staring at daisies. "My dear," he said gently, "your words have troubled the village." Clara lowered her eyes. "I didn't mean to frighten anyone. I only wrote what came to me." Father Henry laid a hand on her shoulder. "Child, life and death belong to God alone. You must not let a shadow of fear steal your days. Promise me you won't dwell on it." Clara nodded politely, but inside she thought, if these words weren't mine, then perhaps they were God's whisper. And who am I to ignore them? As the weeks turned into April, then May, Clara's peculiar sense of foresight grew stronger. She would remark on things before they happened. "Mr. Carter's horse will go lame tomorrow." It did. "There will be a storm tonight." The heavens opened that very evening. "The schoolhouse clock will stop at noon." And it did, to everyone's astonishment. The villagers began calling her the girl touched by fate. Some admired her. Others kept their distance, afraid. Even Eleanor, loyal as she was, admitted one evening, "Clara, sometimes it feels like you're living half in this world and half in another." Clara only sighed. "Perhaps I am." Clara began to wonder if the diary's words were not a fixed fate, but a warning, a chance to change her future. She confided in her father one night by the fire. "If I avoid all danger, if I stay indoors on June 12th, perhaps I can escape it." Thomas seized her hand. "Yes, yes. That's exactly what we'll do. You'll not leave this house that day. Do you hear me?" For the first time in weeks, Clara felt a flicker of relief. Maybe, just maybe, she could outwit the destiny written in her diary. By early June, the village prepared for its summer festival. Lanterns hung between cottages, fiddlers tuned their instruments, and the smell of roasted meats filled the air. For once, Clara allowed herself to feel like an ordinary girl. Eleanor pulled her into the dancing circle, their laughter ringing out as music filled the night. For a few precious hours, Clara forgot the shadow looming over her. But as the church clock struck 9, she froze mid-step. The heavy clang echoed through her chest. 3 days, she whispered under her breath. Eleanor squeezed her hand. "Clara, what did you say?" Clara forced a smile. "Nothing, just enjoying the moment." Yet deep inside, she felt time slipping like sand through her fingers. June 11th arrived with a stillness that seemed unnatural. Even the birds were quieter, as though the whole village was holding its breath. Clara spent the day in silence, her hands restless, her eyes flicking often toward the church tower. That night she lit her candle and opened her diary. The quill hovered for a long time before she began to write, not about death, but about life. "If tomorrow is truly my last day, then let these words be my prayer. I am grateful for the meadow flowers, for the laughter of my dearest Eleanor, for my father's love even in silence. Should I leave, let my life remind others to cherish each breath. If tomorrow comes, I will be ready." She closed the diary gently, pressing her lips against its worn leather cover. Then, for the first time in weeks, she slept peacefully. June 12th dawned radiant, as if the world wanted to defy her prophecy. Sunlight spilled across the cobblestones, and wildflowers swayed in the summer breeze. The church bells rang for Sunday service, their notes echoing with a strange weight. Thomas Whitmore barred the door, his face pale. "Not today, Clara. You will not step outside, not even a foot." Clara agreed without argument. She sat by the window, watching the world carry on without her. Children ran with ribbons in their hair. Women carried baskets to the market. Everything looked achingly beautiful, as if sharpened by the knowledge it might be her last sight of it. Her heart pounded with every passing hour. Noon came. She was still alive. A flicker of hope ignited. At 12:30, a frantic pounding rattled the front door. Thomas opened it to find a panicked villager. "It's Eleanor!" She collapsed in the meadow. "Can't breathe. Please, come quick." Before Thomas could stop her, Clara rushed past him, skirts flying. "Eleanor!" she cried. She found her friend sprawled among the daisies, her face pale, lips tinged blue. Eleanor's chest heaved in shallow gasps. Clara fell to her knees, gathering her in her arms. "Stay with me, dearest," Clara whispered, her voice trembling. The doctor arrived moments later, kneeling beside Eleanor. "Bee stings," he muttered grimly. "She's gone into shock. Her breath is failing. There's little I can do." Eleanor's eyes rolled weakly, searching for Clara. Tears filled Clara's eyes as a strange calm overtook her. She stroked Eleanor's hair and whispered, "It wasn't me. It was always meant to be you." "No," Eleanor gasped. Clara pressed her friend's hand against her chest. "If one must go, let it be me. Take my breath, Eleanor. Live for both of us." No one understood what she meant, but in that moment, Clara's body grew still. The church bells struck 3. Clara's lips parted as if sighing, and her body went limp. A faint smile rested on her face. At that same instant, Eleanor gasped deeply, color rushing back into her cheeks. Her chest rose and fell with strong, steady breaths, as though life itself had been poured back into her. The villagers stood frozen in awe. Eleanor clutched Clara's lifeless hand, sobbing, "No, no, come back! Don't leave me!" But Clara's face remained serene, her eyes closed as if she had simply gone to sleep. That evening, Thomas returned to Clara's room. Her diary lay open on the desk, as though waiting for him. With trembling hands, he read her final entry. June 12th. "Today, I will give my breath to save another. Let them not mourn, but remember, love is stronger than fate." Tears fell onto the page. Thomas pressed the book to his chest, whispering, "My brave, beautiful girl." For the first time in his life, he realized his daughter had seen further and deeper than he ever could. Eleanor never forgot the sacrifice that bound her life to Clara's. She carried the diary with her always, reading Clara's words when the world felt heavy. On nights when grief overwhelmed her, she would whisper aloud, "I will live well, Clara. I will live the life you gave me." She grew into a woman of compassion and courage, caring for the sick, the poor, and the forgotten. Every kindness she gave was her way of keeping Clara alive. The story of Clara Whitmore spread through Ashcombe like wildfire. No longer did villagers whisper about curses or strangeness. Instead, they spoke of a girl whose love defied death. Every year, on June 12th, the village gathered in the meadow where Clara's body had rested. They laid wildflowers, sang hymns, and told her story to their children. "Remember," they would say, "life is not measured by how long we live, but by how deeply we love." Clara became not just a memory, but a legend. Generations passed, but the diary remained, passed down through Eleanor's family. Its pages were fragile, the ink faded, yet its message never dimmed. The lesson echoed through time. Fate may write its words, but love decides how we answer. Clara had not been a victim of prophecy. She had been its master, choosing to give her life meaning rather than surrender to fear. In every act of kindness inspired by her story, Clara lived again. Decades later, Eleanor's granddaughter discovered the old diary while cleaning the attic. She traced the faded ink, marveling at Clara's words. Then she noticed something no one else had seen, an almost invisible line, written faintly beneath Clara's last entry. "And when they remember me with love, I shall never truly die." The girl smiled through her tears. She ran to her grandmother, reading the words aloud. Eleanor, now old and frail, closed her eyes and whispered, "Yes, Clara, you were right. You've never left us." And so it was true. Though Clara's body lay beneath the soil, her spirit lived on, in Eleanor's breath, in the villagers' hearts, in the diary's fragile pages. Through love, she had found eternity.